You're seeing my screen now.
Yes.
So do you see my pictures now?
We see your PowerPoint presentation.
Yes.
My God, Catarina, you are really a genius.
Unbelievable.
I'm happy.
Unbelievable.
Thank you, Catarina.
Okay, we
I
start.
really have a question, actually.
Who?
Yes, Drew, please.
Well, when I looked at your title, Painting Against Spectacle, in the context of this work of Katharina Grosse, it immediately occurred to me that when we think of spectacle, we think of Guy Debord and Society of the Spectacle and the Situationists. And at this time, these were all French Marxists who were very conscious of the idea of commodification.
Yes.
Especially with artworks. And of course, Katharina Grosse's works, because they become almost like Carl Andre, they become a part of the space in which you see them. You cannot just take them off the wall, take them and to a gallery and sell them, or move them to an apartment and put them over the place of honor above the fireplace.
Depends on the size of your apartment. Well, I don't know. It feels as if my lecture was already over. Actually, it feels as
it was a little bit of avant-garde forerunner question, Drew.
Yeah. No, it's cool because it's true that
I understood.
No, it's everything is. I don't understand you very much correctly. It's interrupted, but it's. I sense there a quite relevant question, but it's like a question as far as I can see of a second level, isn't it? I mean, I'm trying to read the work in a certain way, and I try to read the work as exactly opposing in a specific way, which I would like to explore now. Exposing exactly the spectacle, the condition of the spectacle, and it's true, and you will see that I'm basing my presentation on Debord very much. Yes, so that's okay. I don't know if I answered the question, but maybe we can come back to this issue.
I'm pretty sure this is going to be an exciting evening. To just pay the debt to the certain order, meaning that because this is myself who initiated the whole situation, I would like to maybe start with a few words, and then I give it all to Ulrich. But I just thought that it would be great if I could just at the beginning to say a few words about Ulrich and about the lecture which is going to happen. And well, it is my incredible pleasure and honor to have Ulrich on the second lecture from the series, which is called the Sealed Studio Talks, initiated by and supported by the Department of Painting of University of Arts in Poznań. This is the second lecture, as I was saying, from the series of online lectures dedicated to encounter with the critical thought of the most renowned contemporary theoreticians, art critics, curators, and artists. At the time of the pandemic solitary confinement, we believe that with our effort, the forced physical distance can be reshaped into the advantage of the greater proximity in exchange of ideas. The lecture which we have a pleasure to listen to today has been called Painting Against Spectacle, Notes on the Work of Katharina Grosse. I would like to say a few words about Ulrich. Ulrich Loock was basically he's an art critic and curator and a lecturer, renowned from many venues. That I would passionately insist on the very important stressing the important notion of a painting in contemporary art. From 98 to 2010, he served as the director of Kunsthalle Bern in Museum of Art in Lucerne, and then he was a deputy director of Museu de Serralves in Porto in Portugal. He has organized many international exhibitions of artists belonging to his own generation, but also to older and younger ones. Additionally, he has edited monographic catalogues to accompany the shows and contributed to numerous publications. Currently, Ulrich is based in Berlin. We also had the chance to get familiar with Ulrich's work and the critical thought in the situation which happened a couple years ago in 2014, when Ulrich was the curator of the exhibition called Deficiency, which was organized in Poland. And I think many of you can actually remember this wonderful show which gathered together the works on paper of the artists was Andrzej Wróblewski, René Daniels, and Luc Tuymans, and that was the event which was organized at the time when Luc Tuymans received the honoris causa doctorate at our university. Ulrich is also I would say, incredible writer from my point of view, and for me as a painter, very often I would say an eye-opener for the critical thought about the painting, which he represented in his various writings about most renowned, I believe, painters from our century. To say how the Kieser, for example, or Luc Tuymans, he also wrote about the Gary Hume and various other artists. I would like to give the voice to Ulrich at the moment, and as I was saying, your words from my perspective of a painter were also were always the eye opener. I think the critical theory of art desperately needs at the moment the voices that do not generally create the overview of the contemporary art without this particular specific what the genre of painting may represent at the moment. And for me, Ulrich, you're one of those very important voices at the moment who can actually open our eyes in terms of the way how to approach the painting in the contemporary reality and contemporary art landscape. So we all yours.
Thank you, Dominic. This is, of course, super kind, the way you have introduced me. I'm not used to this kind of praise, so I feel a little bit ashamed.
You shouldn't be.
Thank you. And you forgot to mention, among my many credentials, to mention this quite unusual contribution that I had the honor to be invited to make to one of your own publications.
That was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, that was interesting because I somehow I don't remember. I didn't feel like writing or so, or I couldn't, or whatever. But I said, okay, but I can ask you a few questions, which I did, and Dominic answered these questions, and then I asked another set of questions, and they were answered again. And I thought that was an interesting way of collaborating or of relating in relation to an artist's work.
Likewise, Ulrich, for me, that those, I'm using this word, but those questions were the questions which were the eye openers for me. Very
okay,
often.
Thank you. Well, this eye opener thing is also very kind and very nice. Let's see if you say the same thing in 1 hour still. In any case, for me, it is a pleasure, of course, to be invited to talk here this afternoon, talk to Poznań, and it's a special pleasure also, I must say, to follow in this faculty in this function, let's say, of a speaker to follow Yehuda Safran. Because Yehuda, for a long time, he has been somebody whom I have known, not so very well, but the few times that we met in different parts of the world always have been somehow amazing and extremely lively and super special. And so that was already great. And also, I have the feeling that, or maybe my lecture will somehow connect to Yehuda's lecture, and possibly, I mean, I would be pleased if that were possible. Maybe my lecture can also contribute a little bit to the debate or this exchange among friends that followed the lecture of Yehuda. He did initially in his lecture quote Jan Hendrik van den Berg, saying every painter is a born phenomenologist. And I thought, what is this? Number one, of course, I was somehow touched or excited by hearing such a strong statement. Every painter is a born phenomenologist. Of course, immediately you start to ask yourself, well, first of all, what is a phenomenologist? And secondly, aren't there some painters who are not phenomenologists, etc., etc.? So I thought this was really a challenging statement. So I went to the internet and looked up the quote, and that, of course, is sometimes well, it's nice. So let's say not necessarily revealing. And what I read there is the following: Van den Berg. Objects have something to say to us. This is common knowledge among poets and painters. Therefore, poets and painters are born phenomenologists. Or rather, we are all born phenomenologists. Did you know that? Dominic, did you know? Drew, did you know? And it continues. We all understand the language of objects. So, I understand it as saying that a phenomenologist is somebody who turns towards objects to understand their language, because no person or individual or subject is an autonomous, separate entity. You are a person, I am a person, according to Van den Berg, only through this connection, through this relation to things, to objects. And actually, Yehuda, with some other participant of the debate, made a thing about object and thing. But I'm not going to warm this up again. So, to turn...
A very materialistic and therefore perhaps situationist or perhaps lettrist vision of the world. And I would argue that it leaves out the connection that's possible through metaphysics.
It's one issue, right? Yeah, I want to come to something else, but let's keep it in mind if we want to pursue really this debate on phenomenology. But thank you for this remark. It's actually it's somehow I feel supported by you in what I'm going to try to develop now. Maybe it goes in some sort of way in a not in the same direction, but another branching off, let's say, of this turning to things, right? So according to Van den Berg, to turn to objects and pick up their language reveals ourselves and others, to us and to others. So there is no person, according to Van den Berg, no person, no individuality, no subject, and probably there's also no other, if there is not a relation to things, if there's not an understanding of the language of things. And of course, it is Edmund Husserl who pronounced this call to the things in themselves, which is based on the claim that there is something to be grasped of things outside ourselves that is true anytime, anywhere. This is actually the way Yehuda phrased it. And now, and this is very interesting, I think, the necessary organ to access things, to, again, referring to Van den Berg, to access the language of things would be, according to Husserl, intuition. Intuition. And intuition is a way of inner seeing. It's a way of seeing. It's definitely a way of seeing, but it's not just looking at some things. It's something, intuition, that I call a way of inner seeing, without explaining or trying to explain that too much now. In any case, the organ of accessing things in this line of thinking is not conceptuality. It's not reason or rationality. It's a kind of visuality. So probably we have to understand from this, to include Van den Berg's notion of the language of objects, that a thing starts to talk, language of things, that a thing starts to talk when if it is seen in a particular unique way, a way that has been liberated from prejudice, convention, anything that had previously been established concerning this thing. So you see what I'm getting at this moment, which is that there is a curious entanglement, let's say, of language and visuality. I'm not going to pursue that now further, but I think it's a very interesting issue. So once again, Van den Berg talks about the language of things that every one of us supposedly is able to understand. For Husserl, the organ of accessing things in themselves is intuition, and there you have a relationality, an entanglement of language and visuality. For the moment, maybe you can retain that the phenomenological approach to things seems to be informed by visuality. This is, at this point of my presentation, important. Phenomenology is a form of visual cognition. So, we hear this call of Yehuda, who is passing on the call of Husserl and Van den Berg and of many others to the things themselves, in order to become a person in his or her or their own right. Now, and here, Drew, I'm looking at you. What, however, if the things suddenly or not so suddenly are not graspable anymore, if they have disappeared irretrievably, if they have faded away, leaving behind a simulacrum, as Jean Baudrillard called it, something of a similar but treacherous appearance? Or what if the things have become undistinguishable from that which they are not? What if reality is in agony, as has been claimed by Baudrillard? So what does it mean, this call to the things in themselves, if the things have somehow left, if they are not, if they have been consumed, assumed, consumed, evaporated, if they are not accessible, not because we are not smart enough, or because our consciousness is tricked or something. No, because these things, this reality itself, has taken its leave. And to my understanding, this is exactly the situation that has, this is the scenario, let's say, that has been designed and that has been discussed and has been brought to the stage, to put it that way, by Guy Debord, exactly in his book, The Society of the Spectacle, from 1967, and other publications and talks, etc., of this person. Guy Debord was born in 1931. He died. He was a French person. He was an author, a filmmaker, some other things. And actually, Wikipedia also says that he was a revolutionary. And that is interesting to me, because I didn't know that revolutionaries is something like an occupation. A revolutionary is something like an occupation, or even a profession, similar to being a filmmaker and to be an author.
In the case of France, that just meant that he was alive in Paris in '68.
Yes, that's enough to qualify me. No,
he read books.
Sorry?
And he read books.
Yes, and that makes him a revolutionary. Yes, but okay, cool. But what I am so amazed by is that this kind of alignment, right? To put these different, let's call it occupations or professions, to be a writer, to be an artist, to be a filmmaker, on the same level as being a revolutionary. So thank you, Wikipedia, something to think about. Guy Debord got most of his exposure, let's say, as a member and a founding member and as the boss and the director, etc., of the so-called international situationism, which was active, I mean, officially as a, like surrealism, officially active from 1957 to 1972. And this Situationist International was a group of people, actually not very many people, very few people actually, a group of people who ventured to reclaim the city, namely Paris, as you mentioned already, Drew.
Which was kind of a constructed situation.
Right. So to reclaim the city as a place of actual, authentic, unpredictable, anarchic life. They were busy, let's say, mapping the city or remapping the city following desire, subverting power, economy, bureaucracy, tradition, everything that prevented people to make immediate, unimpeded use of the city. Tentatively, I would call this kind of a practice an aesthetic activism. And this aesthetic activism of the situationists gained decisive actuality in the context of the protests of May '68. So, what is the spectacle in the thinking of Debord? Based on the Marxist analysis of commodification, it is the theory of the idea of the spectacle, the analysis of this specific state of society is based on the Marxist analysis of commodification. Commodification is understood as a transformation of natural resources and social processes, such as human labor and human relations, a transfer of everything that is interconnected to form a world or to form the world, a transformation into commodities. That is separate, delimited objects of a certain value. This value, to be precise, is reduced to the value commodities acquire as objects of exchange in the marketplace. These objects, these commodities, have no intrinsic value, they have no use value. Now, to be involved with commodities as a producer or as a consumer separates the individual from others, but also from himself or herself or themselves. And this has been called alienation. So, to make it short, the transformation of reality into commodities creates alienation. And this, of course, is quite pertinent if you remember what I said. Yes, Joanna, I see. You have to ask this question in a moment. Let me finish the sentence. This state of alienation through a broken, let's say, relationship with things that have been turned into commodities has to be put in relation to Van den Berg's idea of accessing the language of things in order to confirm yourself as a person. Now, Joanna, do you want to ask your question?
Hello, hello, good morning. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just only want to ask the question because I cannot see any presentation, just only the second screen, and I'm wondering, should I see the presentation? But I cannot.
By presentation, you mean pictures?
Yes.
No, there are no pictures.
Okay.
This is theory.
Okay.
This is theory, but I will come to pictures.
Okay. Thanks.
Greek word for spectatorship.
What was that?
The word theory derives from the Greek word for spectatorship. So it is, theory presupposes there's something already there. It cannot be prescriptive.
Correct. Yes.
In that case, it's related to spectacle.
Absolutely. I didn't think of that, but it's yes, I'm aware of that. However, we may also come back to this this idea of intuition as a sort of inner seeing. Yeah. So theory maybe is not necessarily done with your eyes, but with another version, let's say, of a visual tool.
This is also where it's very important for Husserl's distinction between noetic and noematic perception.
Can you explain that later?
Sure.
Thank you. So, but now, I mean, this, what I tried to present here, this was like traditional and well-known. Actually, you know, it's so nice to speak to people in Poland. However, I'm afraid only the older ones, they are trained in Marxist theory. I'm afraid the younger ones are. Yeah, I was in. Unfortunately, I couldn't go back because of this bug in China. and had some seminars. And then I said, and it's so great to be here, because I'm really sure that you know what I mean when I talk about alienation. It's so, you know, for me, it's so, I have such a great expectation to learn something from somebody who is based in Marxist theory. And they say, no, don't expect any of that from us. We don't know. Anyway, so as I said, this was this idea of commodification is Marxist analysis, and obviously Guy Debord in the 50s, 60s went one step further, and I mean, obviously,
if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt, but in Marx, it's even worse than alienation, because the worker who consumes the means of production does not share in the surplus value he realizes by consuming the means of production.
Of course,
value.
This is part of alienation, right? That it's privately appropriated, the result of production, of productivity. Yeah, it's part. It's. I mean, alienation. This condition of alienation is obviously, and you know it better than I do, although your name doesn't predestinate you for the Marxist theory.
But I used to live in China.
What?
I used to live in China.
Oh, fantastic. So let's chat about that later. In any case, I have been exposing this idea of commodification, of the transformation of natural resources, of social relations, of everything that makes a world, a transformation into commodities, into this delimited entities that expose nothing but their exchange value. And Debord now, in his analysis, and according to a later date, obviously, of his observation, went one step further and analyzed for his own time the transformation, yet again, one could say, a second level of transformation of the commodified reality into an image world. So that is really the point that Debord is making. He's showing and explaining how we are not anymore just confronted with the commodity abstraction from reality, but we are confronted now with a even more advanced version, let's call it, of abstraction, which he calls the spectacle, which is the transformation of this world into a world of images. Of images, of brands, of advertisements, of propaganda, of media events, etc., etc. Now here's a quotation from the book, The Society of the Spectacle. I quote, "The images detached from every aspect of life fuse in a common stream in which the unity of this life can no longer be re-established. Reality considered partially," and here he means images. He means that images are part of reality. And now notice what is changing in the thinking of Debord. Reality considered partially unfolds in its own general unity as a pseudo world apart, an object of mere contemplation. What he's saying here is that images, of course, have been known since, I don't know, the beginning of the world almost. but they have always been one part of the world. Representation, shadows, indices, etc., have been part of the world. And what he's claiming here, Guy Debord, is that in his own time, in the 50s, and maybe it goes back to the 20s or 30s of the 20th century, that in this time, this part of the world, images, turn into a new totality that pushes away what used to be a reality, or what images had been representations of. So what used to be a part of the world now takes over the complete stage. It becomes a total new reality, a sort of like...
Draws very close to Adorno.
What are you referring to now?
The idea of the culture industry.
Oh yes, of course, absolutely, yes. Yes, I don't know if I don't quite remember if Horkheimer and Adorno, if they were as radical as Debord, saying that this the products, let's say, of the cultural industry, that they completely take over and completely push out what used to be reality.
A lot about domination, and that.
As far as I understand the sentence of Debord, it's not just domination; it's totalization. You know, and this is so exciting, I think. So I start the quote again, and then I will not interrupt the voice of Debord again. The image is detached from every aspect of life, fused in a common stream, in which the unity of this life can no longer be re-established. Reality considered partially unfolds in its own general unity as a pseudo-world apart, an object of mere contemplation. The specialization of images of the world is completed in the world of the autonomous image, where the liar has light to himself.
And this is language straight from Adorno, the autonomy of the image.
Right. I don't know if it's the autonomous idea is if it's really let's say private property of Adorno, but yes, definitely he has worked very much on that. So the last sentence of my quotation: the spectacle in general, as the concrete inversion of life, is the autonomous movement of the non-living. So the image world of the spectacle is one part of reality that has completely suppressed or taken over reality. It turns into, as he phrased it, Debord, a pseudo-world apart. And as a pseudo-world apart, it is an object of mere contemplation. And one more thing, and I think this makes the thinking of Debord so, well, uncompromising. There's no way back to the real world. There's no way back. And I'm not sure if this is, and I'm just not sure because I've not read it recently, if this is also as radical in Adorno.
To know. Users of smartphones, they seem to know that there's no way back.
So, no way back to the real world. And this is really tough. And now I would say, and here I'm trying to advance or to adopt Debord to our now current situation. I would say that the general attachment to shows, to games, to news, the immersion in social media is the contemporary totalized form of the spectacle. So I don't really know, because it's not really my field. It's not. I'm not busy with this kind of thinking and with this kind of literature every day, and so I don't really know how appreciated De Boer and the theory of the spectacle is nowadays. It can be that it's not so super appreciated. Actually, I've been with this book here, which you probably know, Downcast Eyes by Martin J. And he seems to indicate that De Boer somehow, after the faltering of the May '68, somehow fell out of fashion. But to me, his analysis of the spectacle seems to be an amazing and revealing tool also to understand our own condition of being attached, and we saw it preparing this lecture, being completely attached to visual media, let's say, visual media that hold us in their grip and make us, so to say, their servants, make us into people who keep this visual system, of social networks, etc., running. So I would like to recommend to anybody who tries to understand what we are passing through nowadays to pick up the book of De Boer and read it, or to watch his film. He has made a film, very interesting, I think, a theory film, quite interesting. A film promoting the most important parts of his book. So this situation now would be described as a situation where the exchange of images replaces social relations. And now I see one difference to De Boer's analysis of the pseudo-world apart. While, according to De Boer, the world of the spectacle is an object of contemplation, of passive consumption, or of consumption that creates passivity, the contemporary spectacle activates every one of us, urges us to actively participate in the creation of the spectacle. And that means in the creation of a visual, of an image world that separates us from the things and from each other. So we are not only subjected to this condition, but it seems to me that we are made into active and happy participants in the creation of this situation, of this condition. The spectacle, this pseudo world apart, is informed by virtuality. It's a virtual world, virtuality. And virtuality, I understand as the property of an image of reality, which cannot be compared to or traced back to reality anymore. So we are confronted with an image world, we are immersed in an image world, but in opposition to previous, maybe, conditions, we are not able to look back from the image world to a real world, to say, oh, the image world, it's an illusion or something like that. We are not able anymore, and this really describes our current condition quite nicely, I think, to identify an illusion. And to this, I connect to the term of virtuality. Virtuality is the property of an image of reality which cannot be traced back to an underlying and somehow reliable reality anymore. The replacement has consumed what it had been introduced to replace. Marx and Freud as well call such replacement a fetish. A fetish is a mask lacking any substrate it is masking, thereby making unmasking impossible. Now, why is that problematic? Why are we not happy to live in this world of images, of illusions, of fetishes, etc., etc., which is maybe what was suggested, and to come back to the book, Drew, that you are referring to by Adorno and Horkheimer, this was probably what was suggested to Ulysses when he sailed by the land of the Lotofag people. They said, come here, come share our life. We don't have to, we have no work obligations. We live practically in paradise. The only thing we have to do is go in the morning to this place where the lotus fruit is growing, and we take it, we eat it, and that's all, you know. And he said, no, we cannot do it. We have to suffer, we have to work in order to gain paradise, or to gain a better situation. And Baudrillard is often considered the one who said, no, forget about it. Don't worry. You know, this pseudo world apart, as the board called it. It's okay. It's okay. We can live in it. It's okay, and we should enjoy it. We should enjoy it. And so, what is wrong with it? I don't really know what is wrong with it. Why can we not live like the Lotofag people? You know, get some drugs and in the morning, and then live in this beautiful dream. Probably what is wrong with it is that the production or the creation, the production and the maintenance of the image world, of our contemporary image world, that it is connected, that it is a matter of power and of submission. And I don't want to explore this further, but it seems to me that exactly this issue of power and submission is what it makes it impossible, unacceptable to just go off and enjoy this pseudo world apart. So and now I'm talking. I hope I don't sound paternalistic, but I'm talking now to the students who are listening, especially to the students, but to anyone else as well, but to myself also. If an artist asked me today what to do in art, what might be the possible relevance of contemporary art in an apparently open and undefined situation as ours, I would be inclined to answer, do something about the totalization of the image world. Create a model, a prototype of battling, of subverting this world. Create a difference to, a deviation from, an opposition to this world. This is what I would say. And I would say that, knowing perfectly well that, for instance, the situationist approach faltered in the aftermath of May 68. Even knowing that, I would even go one step further, and I would continue my good advice, maybe mentioning painting, exactly painting, as a privileged field of an antagonistic move, of a move against the totalized world of the spectacle. Painting. Why painting of all things? Painting has been declared obsolete. It has been declared dead since the 1980s, with a lot of very good arguments. Exactly because painting is bound to visuality. Exactly because painting is bound to the world of images. Exactly because painting is bound to the world of the spectacle. It has an affinity with the spectacle. And as a consequence of that, radical people, especially since the 80s, have claimed that painting is dead, that painting is obsolete, and that as an artist, you better should move to different ways of dealing with the world. Activism, lecture performances, etc., etc. The past biennial in Berlin, there were no paintings at all except by non-trained people. Very interesting. If you also talk about ideas of equality and correctness. And since the 80s, and probably also before, there has been a very powerful reaction against visuality and against oculocentrism in the arts, as well as in philosophy and other fields of the humanities. Actually, I guess one could even argue that the phenomenological approach itself, by its visual character, risks to support the creating of an image world that makes the objects of phenomenological concern disappear. So, in very clear and conscious opposition to the ban on painting, which hasn't eased until now to the contrary, I wouldn't recommend turning against visuality. I'd rather recommend adopting visuality to engage the visuality of the spectacle in a battle at close range, or to reconfigure the visuality of painting in such a way that it is fit to counter spectacular visuality. And I'm sure it's not easy. I think it's absolutely necessary, and it's really a mission. And at the same time, I'm also sure that there's very many different ways of engaging with the world of the spectacle. I would like now to present the painting of Katharina Grosse as one example of how this may work, this battle in the field of painting against the total spectacle of the image world. Now I'm trying to, let's see if I'm going to, do you see my pictures now?
Yes, we see your presentation.
Cool, that is amazing. Now let me see. You see it, fantastic. Yes. So this is not here. This is a work that Katharina Grosse made in 1998. and it's a color field, you could say, sprayed on the wall, and it's sprayed. It's sprayed, and I will talk about this, the issue of spraying in a moment extensively. It's really important. So this is her first work where she sprays in an architectural, or where she applies paint through spraying in an architectural environment. This is at Kunsthalle Bern in 1998. And I show you another work of hers. Later I will show you some more, but I hope that you have at least some visual memory of her works. I show you now another work of hers, which is Das Bett, The Bed, from 2004. And what she did here, she sprayed across her own bedroom. She returned one day from Berlin back to her home in Düsseldorf and decided to spray over her bedroom. It's sort of interesting. I don't know why it's interesting, but I mention it here, that this work has never been exhibited in public. It's only known to people outside, very few visitors, and Catarina, of course, herself, through this image. So
I think I refer it to Tracy Emmons.
Well, I think this is Tracy Emmons. Something went wrong. You know, maybe it's well, something burst. Something went wrong in the practice of Tracy Emmons. I'm not aware of any work of hers where things got in this way, let's say, out of control. But maybe this is exactly what Catarina's work is about, to create a situation of being out of control. I'm trying to explore this further. So, do you see me now?
Yes.
Or do you see me? Okay. So in that case, I don't see you.
You're on a small screen and the bed on a much bigger screen.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I don't see you anymore, but I can do without the lovely pictures of you for a short while. I will I will keep this picture here now, and will expose in 5 points what I find remarkable or worth mentioning, actually what I find important about such works of Katharina Grosse's. Once again, my focus is the practice of spraying. What does it mean to spray? To make to apply paint through spraying. It means to apply paint from a distance, using a prosthetic device, the spray gun. What does that mean now, to apply paint from a distance using a prosthetic device? It means, I think, that you sever painting from the auctorial gesture, that you sever painting, the action of painting, right? Not the result. The action of painting is severed from the artist's body. It's put into the action of painting is removed from direct, immediate connection to the artist's body, to the body of the author of this work of art. But it is also removed from the support, the action of painting, the application, this transitive doing is also distance severed from the support. So with spraying, painting is a thing in between. I think this is quite important. And of course, saying all of this and looking at this kind of work, I think it's impossible not to think of the practice of Jackson Pollock. And here I have a picture. One of these famous pictures of Jackson Pollock painting. And actually the lady sitting there on this bar stool is Lee Krasner, his wife. So it has been argued that this way of painting, of applying paint, of dripping paint from a certain distance down to the ground, onto the canvas that's covering the ground, it has been argued that that this should be related to an act of pissing, male pissing, and referring to Freud and to his talking about this act of dripping liquid, of male dripping liquid. One can go even one step further and relate this action of Pollock's to a homoerotic competition focusing on pissing out the fire. And now, Katharina Grosse, I think in her own practice of spraying, is not replacing the implications of male sexuality that inform the working practice of Jackson Pollock by implications of a female sexuality. She's replacing this, however, by an attitude, let's say, of indifference, of in-between. What we see here is the artist painting, her spray gun in her hands, and covered in this overall. So what we see here is a body that is vulnerable, and it's a body that is potent. It's a body that is able to do things. And it's a body also that is playing a different and an unrevealed game. We don't know really what this body is doing. There's neither the male implications that I try to address, talking about Pollock, nor are there any specifically female implications of this body practice. It's something different, something in between. There's a certain indifference, there's a certain neutrality. Yes, there is vulnerability. Yes, there is potency. But what it is exactly, we don't really know. So I think it's saying all of that, you may also go back to the image of the bed, where you have the body exiled through painting from the bed. So there is an issue of the body in relation to this type of painting, which is applying paint through spray over a distance. Then there's a second point. This practice, this spray painting practice of Katharina Grosse merges the physical, body-involving practice of painting with the visual practice of seeing, or the other way around. This painting practice merges the visual practice of seeing with the physical, body-involving practice of painting.
Of course, here with the sprayer, unlike Pollock, you do not have the element of accident integrated with the application of pigment. the sprayer is still quite intentional.
Yes and no. Number one, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of accident in Pollock, but look at how the paint is running down here. That's also quite accidental, isn't it?
Yes.
And the yeah, and the further the painter goes, recedes from the support, you know, using different tools. Then later in her career, the
way the colors combine.
Also, quite, I mean, with experience, you can do many things, but in the first place, quite uncontrollable.
Yeah.
I think it's more out of control than you think in the first place. I mean, we are not talking here about the spray gun, you know, that you use to make these paintings on a truck or something. You know, we are talking about a very powerful spray gun that is where the paint is really applied from a distance, and there you have an interference of many things. You have the interference of the atmosphere. You have the interference of the air pressure, if you want, the wind, etc., etc. You know, at least potentially. So I was mentioning or saying that there's a second point that characterizes the use of spray painting, which is merging the physical practice of painting with the seeing, with the visual practice of seeing. And here a quote from Catarina once again, where she says, tells the following: "As a child, I would play a game with myself before I got up. I had to first erase the shadows on the wall. I invented an invisible paintbrush to paint over the shadows of the windowsill or the lamp or whatever was there. It became like an obsession. For me, looking at the world has always been connected to doing something in it, on it, or with it at the same time." So making the spray paint, she's not claiming the ocular-centric privilege of a body that has been reduced to a luminous subject point, nor is she claiming an explicit or even exclusive physical practice. What she's doing through spraying the paint, I would say, is to avoid polarity and to avoid contradiction, not to side neither with visuality nor to side with physicality, but to perform something like an embodied visuality or maybe a specular visual body practice. And I would say also, but I have not been able really to explore this. Maybe there is something there or maybe not. I don't really know at this point. But I would like to mention that embodied visuality matches the suspension of the polarities of gendered sexuality that I was addressing in the first point of my attempt to an analysis. Now, the third point, what is spray paint doing? Spray paint is apt to leave the confines of the painting support, for instance, a canvas or the format of a picture, and it is apt to settle any place within reach, any place. Paint can settle any place. It's not confined, and this is really mobilized through spray paint. It's not confined to a a predetermined field of painterly activity. And once again, a quote from Katharina Grosse here: painting can land anywhere, on an egg, in the crook of an arm, along railway tracks, in snow and ice, or on the beach. So what is being emphasized here is a sort of indifference, once again indifference, that ignores all necessity of a specific location. Painting can precipitate, fall out here or there or nowhere. Now, the fourth point, spray paint, as Katharina Grosse uses it, does refute all kinds of mimesis or representation. Any reference to something that is not present or imaginary. And as such, it also refutes contemplation. Remember de Boer's contention that the spectacle is object of contemplation. So here we have an example of a visual practice that refutes contemplation. It is not sitting in front of a thing that you address, maybe in a way of inner seeing, contemplating it. No, what the spray painting does is intervening in the actual reality. On the other hand, it is also true that this practice of applying paint does not align itself with the crude material reality as has been done in minimal art or arte povera, not to speak of the ready-made, for instance. So in this case of painting, the painting is coextensive with the material world at hand, related to this reality through touch, through comprehensive analogy, actively intervening, but it is also distinguished from the material world as it is through colorfulness, through the properties of a second skin, an unruly, vandalistic, expansive cover. So you see that once again, I'm positioning this work in an in-between condition. In between a condition of distanced contemplation in this case and an integration into the crude material world. It's in between. And then my fifth point of what spray painting does is the following. Spray painting, as Grosse practices it, and it's, I think we can see it quite nicely in this picture, spray painting is crossing and dissolving categorical borders separating things. Spray painting is, in that sense, uncoupling things and names. If this green in the middle of the picture is running across the wall and continuing across parts of the bed, it in some sense doesn't make sense anymore to say there's a wall, there's a bed. It may make more sense there's a continuation of a dripping green. So this is what I mean when I'm talking about the dissolution of categorical borders. And actually, I think that probably exactly this dissolution of categorical borders, this crossing of borders that create the identity of things, that separate things from each other, and actually is supported through names. This is maybe the most important achievement of the painting of Katharina Grosse.
I must tell you that this reminds me very much of an essay of Meyer Shapiro in which he writes about cave painting.
Oh, really?
And he says that the interesting thing for him about cave painting is that as much as he looked at it, and he looked at almost all of them, he noticed that the painters would make new images that would completely intrude on the images that were there before.
Right. Yeah, I remember this argument.
Bison from a previous artist would not stop the next painter from painting his bison in a way that completely intruded in it.
Yeah.
He said the reason for this is that this painting predates the invention of the defined image field.
Fantastic. Thank you.
He said that being only 40,000 years old, the defined image field is a relatively new invention in humanity.
Yeah.
And that having a defined image field, which could be a canvas or whatever you like, is what then compels all these criteria that we think of as standard for painting, things like composition, things like color composition, balance, things like rules about what aspect of a form can intrude on another.
Fantastic.
The invention of the defined image field,
which
is absent in a cave painting, or maybe in a fireworks bursting of Saiguachang.
Right.
And so, in a sense, this approach of Katharina Grosse might be seen as in a way, as a sort of revolution against the defined image field. And I would say, like the cave paintings, one constituent of the work naturally imposes on the others.
Yeah, it's great what you're saying. I'm just, and it's really curious. I remember now this argument of Meyer Shapiro, but I had not had it present. But some time ago, in some essay, I actually wrote that I think that Katharina's painting should be likened to cave painting. I had this idea, probably influenced by unconscious memory of Meyer Shapiro, and my argument in that essay went like this. I was saying probably the painting of Katharina Grosse should be located there in the vicinity, let's say, of cave painting, and not in an environment of contemporary painting breaking out of the confines of the picture field, etc., etc.
And of course, it seems also related to what you were saying earlier, is that a conventional painting with a conventional defined image field always finds itself subordinate to the exhibition space, the architecture of the exhibition space.
Yes, sure. But my point now is that I would like to, how to say, I would like to position Katharina's painting outside of this discourse of the picture field and composition, etc., etc., as if it were, making use of a time machine or something. I mean, as an experiment of thought. Yeah. Thank you very much. I mean, this is very confirming what I'm trying to say here. But on the other hand, I mean, in contradiction maybe even to what I just said.
Impressed with the first work of hers you showed from the Kunsthalle Bern.
Yes.
Because it's such a, it's the first time I see this work of hers.
Really?
It's so much a successful way of making the work subsume the architecture rather than have the architecture subsume the work.
You're right, and I can tell you that when I saw this work,
so often tried this unsuccessfully. I think.
Yeah,
I think certainly, you know, the one in Marfa.
I didn't quite get it. Are you looking for the name of a painter?
Yes, so the one in Marfa.
Donald Judd.
Judd. I think Donald Judd was so eager to escape the work being subordinated by the architecture.
Oh, all right.
But I think he never succeeded, and Marfa is not. Yeah. It's not a solution.
Right. And inversely, I can tell you that when I never saw this work in the flesh, but when I saw pictures of it, I thought, no, I don't think it's I don't like it, you know, because why did I not like it? I did not like it because it was crossing the borders that separate the ceiling from the front wall from the side wall. You know, that it's going, as we see, all over, and I didn't like it at that time. But now I know that that is exactly, and I think, Drew, that you pointed to that. That is exactly what makes this work so successful. That it really fucks the architecture. You know, it fucks the everything that has been named. There's a ceiling, we would say. There's an end wall, and there's a side wall, and there's a corner, and you name it, and there's plaster, and there's XYZ, and there's molding, etc. And this painting says, I don't care. You know, this painting really says, I don't care. There's something different. And in that sense, I would say that this painting, and that is really probably my main point when I talk about the work of Katharina Grosse, it is unnaming. It's involved in an activity of unnaming. That's what it does.
Brilliant. So this is Ulrich about acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement
as a form of opposition. I mean, those paintings that what you suggest, what I understand, they do not acknowledge.
Oh yes, indeed, they do not.
Because it's like your reference with Pollock's pissing. That, I mean, the dogs in this masculine approach. Okay, yes. They need to piss onto something. So when you piss onto something, you acknowledge the existence of what you piss on.
Correct.
This is about the opposition to the architecture of the institution by not acknowledging it.
Just not ignoring it, you know, as they say in Vienna, not even ignoring it.
Yes.
You know? And
hello,
yes. And you know, you're totally right, Dominic. You know, with Pollock, obviously, there's this issue of gravitation, right? And it's very much acknowledged. Gravitation. He works with gravitation. Yeah. And the spray paint, I mean, we know all it's impossible to defy gravity on this planet. It's impossible, except you create a vacuum or so. But when you disperse paint and create this sort of colorful fog or mist, you're close to defying gravity. And I think this is also extremely interesting, especially also when we talk about gendered sexuality. I don't want to go into that. It's tricky, it's problematic, but I think it's super interesting.
Ulrich, in Vienna,
yes.
They don't say not even ignored. Only Karl Kraus who said that.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. And maybe I go back now to if I can find you again to see how somebody is. Yehuda, you are there. Unbelievable. You're drinking. Hey, I'm incredible. Ah, if I had known that you are there, I would have held my tongue. It's fantastic. It's so wonderful to see you. And we have so many, and you don't know that really, points where we are crossing without meeting. For instance, in Tongji, in Shanghai. I was there. And I see a poster. Come to the lecture of Yehuda Safran. Unfortunately, it was yesterday.
It was 2 summers ago.
Yes, and I was wondering what you are drinking there, because I'm also drinking in this, and I thought with these lockdown performances, it's so funny how people how people expose their drinking habits. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Now, Dominic.
Campari soda.
Yeah. Okay. Dominic, what are we doing? Shall I continue, or shall I cut it here, or what is the I mean, time-wise?
We have plenty of time, especially that it's absolutely up to your sense of comfort within the situation. And
well, I'm fine. I would love to continue, and anybody who leaves is leaving, right? I mean, it's a free country. the country of lockdown. Okay. So what I find so interesting in the work of Katharina Grosse is that she is reclaiming visuality after all this ban that has been put on visuality, at least since the 80s. She's reclaiming visuality. She doesn't accept that visuality has turned into a banned field, let's say. And she is reclaiming visuality in order to unsettle the identity of things as they are confirmed by names and concepts. So I think this is what she is really doing in her work. She is using, she's applying, she's activating visuality in a way to unname and deconceptualize the world of things. The other way around, visuality, as it is implemented through painting, is the common ground that facilitates the dissolution of categorical confines, separating things from each other, thereby creating identities. And to show you now, since you are so generous to give your time, to show you that the dissolution of categorical borders through painting is implemented on many different levels and in many different ways. I want to show you a few examples of works of Katharina Grosse. I try to go back to my presentation. There it is. Here we go. I mean, this picture is amazing, isn't it? I mean, we shouldn't only talk about Pollock pissing, but we should also talk then about this lady, you know, this domina, colleague and wife, etc., on her throne, you know, towering the poor dog there. Anyway, yeah, and Catarina, in some sort of sense, is, as I try to say, in body terms, located between the two of them in some sort of way. So here is a work that she did in Marfa, drew, probably to kick the leg of Donald Judd.
Yeah.
And as you see, it's again a corner piece, but now it's red, right? Yeah. Now it's red. It's not green anymore, it's red, which I read as saying, here I'm crossing the border of the monochrome, right? It can be not only in any place, anywhere, it can be also any color. And then here is another one, it can also be any kind of gesture. And it can be not only on the wall, but it can be also on the ceiling. And it can cover these arch, etc., etc. And then it can not only be inside, it can also be outside. And if it's outside on the facade, it can not only be on the front panel of the facade, but also on the side panel. And it can connect both. I mean, it can, in that sense, and cross the windows. Exactly. Thank you. Indeed, cross the windows. And again, saying, I don't know about this. Is there a window? Is there a piece of wall? I don't care, you know, I don't care. I go across all of this, and this I call unnaming, disidentifying. And then it continues. She starts to introduce furniture and stuff, you know, probably after she did the bedroom that I showed you. She starts to integrate furniture. So the paint is not
an illusion. It's a fact.
Absolutely, yeah, indeed, absolutely. I mean, there is some illusion going on, you know. It's not just a factual fact. I mean, she is not an arte povera artist, and she is not a minimal artist, and she is not a land artist. You know, she's a painter, meaning that she also takes a distance from the explicit non-illusion, from the crude presence of the material, right? Yeah. So this is important for me. I think that she is here defining, or she is entering into a position in between, you know, a quite undefinable position in between. And here, obviously, it's crossing fixtures, furnitures, etc., and the architecture. And then there's more. Bold. What?
It's extremely bold. It's daring. Audacious.
It's also terrible, because if you like this kind of furniture, you say, "My God, furniture is gone." You know, it's like this painting of Christopher Wool, who refers to Van Eyck. Another situation is where it says, the crowd stands up, gets up from their cinema seats, turn around to get their coats. No coats no more, no home no more, no children no more, no nothing no more. You know, I mean, it is also, I mean, let's face it, this kind of practice of unnaming, of unsettling an organized world, it is daring, as you say, but it is also dangerous. Let's say, you know, it's not just fun. I would say it's if you think of it, and if you really get into this, it's needed, it's necessary, and it's highly dangerous.
Would you consider this danger as a danger of denominating the institution?
Anything. I mean, get rid of names. Get rid of names. Not only what we used to say. Oh, look at the people of the Inuit. They have 300 different names for snow, right? I mean, it's always been an impressive example. It's not replacing one practice of naming by another practice of naming, but here it's the introducing of a practice of unnaming. And what are you confronted with then? You know, there's the danger, I would say.
Would you, Ulrich, would you consider, because I think the danger may exist. This is just sort of improvised thinking, but if you would consider painting as its essence, as a structure which is coherently related to the question of the support as a part of the painting, then you would consider her not being painter at all, because she's not acknowledging the surface.
Yeah, you could say so, yes.
So this means that she's becoming dangerous because she's not a painter, in fact. If you would consider painting as a medium that would include inseparably within its genre the idea or the existence or presence of a support.
I think you are on a track where I'm very happy to follow you, and I think Drew as well, making this reference to cave painting, you know. Because the cave painters, would you call them painters? Along the argument that we are trying to follow now, we would say no.
Well, I think Meyer Shapiro thought of them as painters who were just operating before the defined image field.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah.
There's also one thing which comes to my mind, because Drew has mentioned the Tracey Emin's bed.
Yes.
Which is like the in the relation to the Katharina Grosse's
cool
work.
Yeah.
Then you can would you give maybe us some like your reflection about the sort of Barthian the recognition of the difference between the photography as an indexical and the painting as iconic. So in these terms, you would say that the Tracey Emin's work is much more indexical.
No, there's something else comes to my mind here. Maybe I don't quite understand what you have in mind. What comes to my mind is that isn't it some sort of like a tent or something? What is this, Tracey? Isn't it somehow connected to the names of her lovers?
No, this is not this work. This is just this work where
okay. But this one I would like to refer to.
It's like the evidence of her activity. So we
okay.
Type of evidence of objects.
Right.
Whereas in her work, in Katharina Grosse's work, there's a certain type of denial on the basis of technology where the paint is really applied.
Yeah, there's an antagonism, absolutely, and I think last time in following Yehuda's lecture, I think you also were asking about possible antagonistic potential of art or aesthetic practice, and yes, but I look at this work of Tracey Emin's where she fixes and stitches or whatever she does or whoever does it the names of her lovers. You know, I mean, it's about naming there. It's about getting the thing under control, and with Catarina, it's exactly the inverse, I would say. And now the indexical, I mean, in some sort of way, I would say the work of the painting of Katharina Grosse is highly indexical in the sense that it is coextensive with the world, you know, with the things. It's not representing the things. It's precipitating on the things. It's settling on these things. The spray paint, right? In that sense, I would say it is highly indexical. And I don't know. I mean, this Tracey Emin's. I mean, the ready-made practice of exposing the mess around your bed. It's more like a ready-made practice, isn't it? I mean, there the working on the distance between signifier and signified, I think, is not very developed there. So I don't know if it.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and I don't know if it makes so much sense about talking about the iconic or indexical in relation to Tracey Emin's work. This bit there.
What I was really curious about was mainly because of what you were saying as an introduction to your talk, if I correctly recall. But there was this notion of the I would say the certain type of, in your reflection, I could sense this sort of urge of rewriting the Bird Society of a Spectacle upon the new reality.
Yes, of course.
So there is another layer that you can put onto this situation, meaning that what I was thinking of during your talk on the basis of quoting the board was was the situation which is paradoxical in terms of the reference between the matter and the augmented reality, because we kind of used to that term, very much sort of explored by Manowicz, that we have this augmented reality,
yes,
virtual and the real. But then we're coming to the point, and I think this could be a sort of also part of the reflection of the talk, is that what if we could reverse it? Then that it's not really the virtual that augments the reality, which is the real, but the opposite. That the real is in fact augmenting the virtual. And we live in the world when it's in fact the reality which is augmenting. It's not the reality that is material, but it's the opposite.
Sounds exciting. I don't. Huh?
In terms of the way how you can approach the reference between the denying or not acknowledging the reality by this process of the spray painting, whether this actually points out the whole paradox in terms of the spectacle, which in fact exists not by the reference of the paint which wraps or the image which wraps over the object, but it's the opposite, that the object wraps up over the virtual, which is very much the reality that we deal with at the moment, I think. And I think this is also my point of the reflection, and in fact that the real is not what is wrapping in terms of this augmented reality notion, that you have the virtual space which is wrapping over the real, but it's the opposite, that the object in fact it's wrapping over the virtual.
That's very interesting. I think I'm trying to pursue a little bit another track in my argument, and you will see in which way the track is different. I mean, what I'm trying to avoid, I think, is to create a situation of straightforward inversion, of straightforward symmetry. What I'm trying to avoid in my attempt to position the work of Katharina Grosse is, I'm trying to, I think, to take it out indeed of this system of polarities, And I think, I mean, just formally speaking, this is, I mean, you have explained something where you turn it upside down, or from the head to the bottom, or from the bottom to the head, or from inside to outside. But I would like to try with this work to exceed, to escape this sort of polarity, And let's see if I manage. I continue a little bit. So I would like to come back to what excuse me. There's some more images here. She paints across the landscape, across the soil and the building, across nature and culture, if you want so. And here again, across even the growing nature, which entailed an uproar. People didn't like it at all in Denmark, of course not. And then finally, maybe you have seen that even, Yehuda, when you were in Shanghai, but maybe not. This rather huge thing that she made, installation that she made in Shanghai in 2019. Here it's very obvious, how all this collected material is really crisscrossed, crossed out, unnamed, disidentified through painting. Okay, I turn back to your phases, and I continue my presentation. I mentioned already, I indicated already that painting is, in my view, apt to engage with the condition of the spectacle, exactly because there's an affinity between this image world of the spectacle and painting, both being tied to visuality. They are both connected through visuality, and they share, maybe one could say, they share an immersive, all-embracing quality, both the spectacle, the image world, and painting of Katharina Grosse. Separated, however, both are in various ways. The spectacular disembodiment is countered by Grosse's embodiment of the visual. The imagery representing things is countered by the proximity of paint touching and covering the things. And the fetishistic confinement and confirmation of things in the form of images is countered by disconnecting names and things. Which now is the best way that I can see to pinpoint the antagonism of Grosse's paintings and the spectacle. Here's my proposal. The spectacle is informed by notions of the object and of identity, which are transformed into a sort of replacement, a fetish, a commodity, an image. The painting, on the other hand, promotes the dissolution of identities through crisscrossing the borders of things as they are, which means, among other things, that the painting doesn't return to the things in themselves, as Husserl said. The painting doesn't return to the things in themselves, because these things have already withdrawn in agony. The painting, however, creates a physical proximity to things through dissolving identities and refuting the names that serve to guarantee identities. Therefore, Yehuda, I would doubt that Grosse's painting can be claimed as an example of the phenomenological approach. It is not turning towards the things. It's not turning towards things in themselves. It's rather crisscrossing the border of things. It is creating, I would say, a situation of disidentifying, which is, to put it metaphorically, pulling the carpet of the spectacle world of images, pulling the carpet of the transformation of things into commodities and into images. So I don't know if that would figure as a phenomenological approach, or if it should be called something different.
Well, as Van der Berge in Holland famously said, that all painters are born phenomenologists. I mean, in Husserl language, the return to things themselves is not on the assumption that they are there. It's the assumption that you want to free yourself from thinking that they are there. In fact, you're supposed to suspend your belief in the existence of the world, no less. So in this respect, I think that Catarina's painting perfectly confirms it. I mean, it's another way, a more radical way of doing precisely that. The return to thinking self is only to inaugurate a distance from the way that things are, in order to be able to envisage another way of seeing things. And this is exactly what she provides. So I would say it is a fulfillment of a phenomenological program, if you like.
Okay.
Whether she calls us phenomenologist or not, it's immaterial, you know.
No, that's clear. No, that's clear.
Yeah.
However, my understanding is, I mean, this I do understand. I mean, the phenomenologist is not somebody who is sitting in front of a plant and looking at it and trying to reveal its essence. Let's say it's the intuition is a way of inner seeing. It is suspending all assumptions about presence and knowledge, etc., etc. This is clear, but as far as I can see, it is still, isn't it still somehow connected to the identity of a thing? Isn't it necessary for this approach to be able to say there is something which I want to address through my inner seeing or through my intuitive eidetic approach, etc., etc. And if that should be that way, I would say maybe the painting of Katharina Grosse is on a different track somehow, on a different track, saying no. I'm not investigating the essence of things by dropping everything that is known about these things, but I'm not interested in the identity of these things in itself. I'm with something else, you know, as maybe this cave painter was. I don't know. This is my way of thinking about this.
Yeah, I would agree. Essentially, in all successful works of art, it allows us, as you said, the nameless, it allows us to imagine a world that is other than the one we are accustomed to. And that's where the namelessness that you mentioned several times is so important. Yeah.
Oh, but the interesting thing is, I think, and I want to come to this to close also my presentation in a moment. Maybe it's it's not about another world, you know. It's about
No.
It's not about another world. There's not an alternative world or so. I mean, this is the language of the virtuality, you know. This is the language of the spectacle, that one world is replaced for the other, and we can switch worlds and create new worlds, etc., and creation, etc., etc., etc. It's rather suspending the involvement with any kind of defined world. This is what I'm trying to say. I mean, I put it up to discussion. Yeah, that's it. And in that sense, I would say that if the image world of a spectacle is, let's say, informed by virtuality, by a similarity to an underlying or a real world or whatever, which cannot be retrieved, right? I mean, we have talked in the beginning about the absoluteness of the pseudo world apart, the totalization of the pseudo world apart. So all of that I would address through the term virtuality. And what I would like to claim for this painting of unnaming is potentiality. I would say that this painting is creating a state of potentiality. Potentiality then would be a state before or a side of actualization. There's nothing actual. I mean, this painting, crossing out the names of things, crossing out ideally, the identifiability of things is creating a situation where actualization is suspended. And once again, I would say that the virtue of the world of the images, the spectacle, is characterized through the actualization of something that is similar. So I'm trying to say here that Grosse's painting is somehow opening up a completely different field of the game, playground. I would say that, there's these impressive words, and I looked it up in the internet, and I found that in many translations of this book, that will be evident in a moment which one it is, in all these translations, this sentence has never or hardly ever been translated in a different way. All the translations translated in the same way, which I think is remarkable in itself. And these words are, these amazingly powerful words are, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This, the word, language, names, started the separation of land and water, of heavens and the earth, of light and dark, etc. These words were there when it was a question of beginning to organize the world in a definite form. And what I'm claiming here in my talk now, with reference to the painting of Katharina Grosse, is that the visuality of painting returns the potentiality that has been turned into actuality through creation. And for now, I think it is important to accept and to understand, if not to enjoy, the physically implemented option of potentiality, of a suspension of actualizing, which is responsible for the creation of a virtual world. So I'm claiming here that this painting is a prototype of suspending the conditions, the very conditions that make it possible to create a virtual world, to create a world of the spectacle. And that, in my mind, is the way this painting battles at close range with the pseudo world apart. It's not a different form of actualization. It is the suspension of actualization. This is what seems to be important for me. And now, to relax you maybe a little bit and to finish my talk, I would like to show you a few images of a very new work, very recent work of Katharina Grosse's, and nobody has seen it yet except a very few people, and so you're among the very first people who see this work. It's the images that I'm going to show in a moment have been taken, the photographs, in a theater in Berlin, which was a test for these recent works, which will be exhibited in May, I think, this year in the Helsinki Museum of Art. And it started with this. Here again we see the, and this is an older work, 2013. Again we see the corner of Kunsthalle Bern, but now reproduced, photographed, and printed in a one-to-one measure or scale, printed on silk, and then installed in a situation comparable to the original situation in Bern. And what is interesting for me here is that now the crossing of categorical borders is not only between architecture and furniture, between culture and nature, between architecture and landscape, and all these things that we have seen between the wall and the bed and the books and the cushions, etc., etc. But it is also between the actual presence of painting, the physical, actual, smelly, let's say, presence of painting, of spray painting, and its reproduction. So also these borders are attempted to somehow cross. And the recent works that I mentioned are these. They are a little bit staged, let's say, for pictures. They represent these huge prints. They reproduce photographs that have been made from the studio. Photographs where in the studio empty spots on the walls and spots where excess paint had settled, that was disregarded, etc., etc. All of that is merged or is put together in these photographs. You know, I mean. So in the picture itself, you witness a crossing of borders, of categorical borders, and then in this work, then there's another crossing of categorical borders, the borders between reproduction and painting, you might say, and that function in such a way that that the colors that are photographed, that they act as colors also in the reproduction. You know, they in some sort of way they burn through the reproduction and appear as colors as they appear as colors in the original painting. And I think probably the distinction that is made in the English language between paint and color can explain something here. I assume, I'm not so sure, but I assume that paint can be reproduced, represented, but color cannot be represented. Color has to be color. Color can only represent itself. And that happens in this reproduction. What? I didn't get it. What was this? I said, as far as I can see, color can only be represented by itself. Color is color. In the reproduction, it's color. In the original painting, it's color. The paint can be reproduced. You know, it can be slimy stuff that you can reproduce through a photograph, a slimy material. The color, the paint effect, you cannot reproduce. And so,
because paint acknowledges surface.
Exactly. Absolutely, indeed, Dominic. Yes, absolutely, and color doesn't. You know, color is an effect. It's something that I don't know. And so I think in this work, maybe in all of the works, color, the visual quality. Once again, the issue of visuality. The visual quality of color is what facilitates the unnaming, the crossing of the borders. And I'm also, I can tell you, but it's obvious, I'm also aware that with these works now and with putting these works here at the end of my talk, we in some sort of way re-enter the world of the spectacle. So this is upside down, a studio wall. So we are re-entering the world of the spectacle. So in some sort of way, this suspension or this third position that the painting assumes, this position of potentiality, of a suspension of actualization through doing things, through actualizing, this is not, it seems, in the work of an artist, a sort of final position. The artist is, or this artist, but probably all artists, at least all good artists, they never end. They never finish. It's very rare that an artist is really able. I think there's really very, very few examples where an artist can say, "Okay, I did it. You know, I did it. I did it. I did my mission, and it's done, and it's finished, and I can go. You know, here you can take my brushes, etc. You do what you want, but I'm done." Usually, it's not that way. Usually. And I think it's very interesting to see that in Catarina's work. Usually you do it again and you do it differently. And in some sort of way, I think she is coming back to the issue of the spectacle with this work in a new and different way. And I'm very happy to try to think about it again. You know, I mean, if the artists do it again and differently, also the spectator or the critic has to do it again and try to do it differently. And then now the last thing that I'm going to say within the framework of this talk is when I say do it again, or when I wrote this, you know, do it again, do it differently, I thought, of course, of Samuel Beckett saying, fail again, fail better. That's probably what it is, you know. So it's two advice that I have to students of art, of painting, of people in our world. The first one is do something about the spectacle, and the second one is fail again, fail better. Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so glad to learn about Katharina Grosse, and I'm also very glad to learn that, having seen your name in Berlin, that it's not, as I first suspected, a very playful and intentional misspelling of the English imperative.
You know, yeah. Okay, there's also jokes about that. Yes. Okay.
Ulrich, thank you for the fascinating talk, which as usual with our encounters make me think.
And I hope I'll see you around town once we have a vaccine.
Yes, would be great, Drew. Are you based in Berlin, like permanently?
We all in Berlin. Cool. We all in Berlin.
And where do you live?
Only Huda could be here around too.
Very close to Oranienplatz.
Ah, okay. In the middle of everything. I'm in Tempelhof.
The only thing why I'm also because it's all about and I think I'm very happy that I can expect that my students have now quite some time to think over what you've just said, and including me also in the same position. The only thing which comes to my mind at the moment is also referring to my superficial sort of improvised thoughts on the basis of the last work that you were showing, meaning that is it possible to fail better without the surface? Because she seemed to be going back to the surface in terms of the way how she spreads those curtains. And I'm wondering whether in this productive idea of failing, if this is really the way of acknowledging this route that can lead her also to the way how she can fail, because with her earlier work I couldn't really sense the chance to fail because there was no surface at all. So. For me, this is like another thing I was wondering about, this denial of a surface that she's claiming.
Well, yes, it's very interesting.
To stay without the surface.
I don't know. It's a cool question, a really good question. I hope I remember and maybe think about it or we talk about it. Don't forget this. It's a really nice question, and it brings me to thinking that that when making these works, during the past year or so. She always said, yes, but you also have this light coming through this silk or this kind of polyester, very thin fabric, and you can also walk around it and see it from the backside, and you see something shimmering through, of the printed images, etc. And I don't know if you noticed it, but when I was talking before about color, I somehow imagined that color is burning through in a sort of perspective way, I mean, burning through, pointing through, like digging across the surface of the representational apparatus, color, So I think there are some indications here that that this what I call the dissolving of the categorical distinction between reproduction and original painting, that has to do indeed, as you suggest, with challenging the surface, and involving things like the thinness of the material. Also, don't forget these prints, they are done with a plotter, of course, which is again spraying, right? It's again ink that is sprayed and that is sucked into the textile fabric, etc., etc., etc. I think there's a number of arguments that point in your direction, in the direction exactly of challenging the apparatus of the surface, right? And that maybe goes back to what Drew was saying as well, the convention of the picture plane and composition, etc., etc. So I'm interested. I'm specifically interested in these reproductive works because they have even a stronger affinity with the world of the spectacle than the spray painted works, But I would assume that there's still a possibility of this challenge that I'm interested in. This, antagonism.
I think we're all lucky to have some of these great insights about the painting, especially related to spectacle, and also the whole idea of potentiality that you mentioned, which was a fantastic insight for me to have a way into these works. And so we're really grateful to have had this reading.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Thank you, and I'm personally, I can say that this issue of potentiality, it has come to my, my conscious awareness a certain while ago. But I think it's extremely fruitful, and I can tell you that I'm trying now to make an essay, to write something on the work of the Croatian artist Ivan Kožarić, who died at the age of 100, almost 100, just recently. And he is somebody who produces a lot, but in a very extremely heterogeneous way, And I'm trying to read this accelerated heterogeneity as another way of creating, or of, let's say, creating a state of potentiality. So I think it's I'm very much interested in that recently. Very much. The suspension of actualization, even through actualization. Okay, I think this was a very nice way to say goodbye.
It was a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And I'm really so happy to see you again, Yehuda. And let's be in touch. And I received. We met maybe 3 times or 4 times in our lives, and each time it was super. You're a great drinker of vodka in New York at the Zwirner Gallery. You're an enthusiastic defender of the most obscure architectural ideas at the Biennial of Venice. And of course, I mean, I didn't say that, but I met you through Max Neuhaus, you know, and he is relevant also for this the issues that we are circling around, because Max Neuhaus, he used to be a master percussionist when he was very young. He's unfortunately dead. He was a master percussionist doing premiering Stockhausen at Carnegie Hall, etc., etc. Then he gave this up and worked with sound like a sculptor, creating blocks of sound, etc., etc. You know, going out of music, but using the stuff of music, let's say, sound, making sculptures out of sound, and talking about them in terms of painting, color. You know, all the time. It was all the time about colors. So I think this kind of, I don't want to say transdisciplinarity, that is a ridiculous concept, but this amazing crossing of borders and identities, and thereby recreating, let's say, a state of potentiality. For that also, I think Max is a wonderful example. So it's so great to see you here. So thanks for this. Thanks for this. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Wonderful.
We'll be in touch, all of us.
So much.
Great. And to the people that I don't see, I regret very much. I see that 18 are still there. So I greet all of you and wish you all best of luck. And maybe there's a chance in the hopefully near future to meet in person.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye. Be well.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Welcome.
Thank you. Bye.
No.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
And thanks to the IT genius, to the IT wizard. Huh? I mean, that was amazing.
Yes.
Okay. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Ulrich. Thank you.